It's crunch time in NFL survivor polls where many survivors have already selected the best teams, but you have something to be thankful for. We're here to take a look at the Week 12 slate of games and give you our advice coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lay.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, we lost another 9 this week. The Commanders, they didn't command the field against DeVito and the Giants. Man, he looked pretty good. A couple 3 touchdown passes, just like you predicted, right, Eric?
The Commander secondary could make anybody look good. But obviously, I did not think. I thought Washington was a safe pick. This is, again, a team that is so Jekyll and Hyde. So I know how you guys feel. They knocked me out earlier against Chicago. Man, what a crazy NFL year.
Well, we got 15 folks. I think one of them actually goes tonight, so it might be down to 14 depending on how that goes. Should be a good game tonight. We got Peyton, William, John, Tammy, Travis, Romel, Bert, Rick, Richard, Corey, Igor, Matt, John, Michael, and Gage. Sorry if I misstated any of your names.
And a fond farewell to the 9 that left us. Great run. You guys should feel proud of yourself for the deep run, but we'll follow these final 12. Man, let's do this. Let's talk about Week 12. And Michael, what is a byproduct of making it this far is you likely have used a lot of these teams. Let's show you the 9 games you should be considering. Over on the left, let's just talk about Dallas, Kansas City, Miami, Detroit, and San Francisco. Basically, if you probably don't have any of these teams left, if you do, you should use them. Is it as simple as that?
It's as simple as that. Just do not feel good about the other 4 games that we are going to talk about today. Any of those 5 are much more comfortable than the next few.
Now I have to put just a small objection with the San Francisco 49ers. They are playing in Seattle, and they certainly have a lot of future value the San Francisco 49ers do. But forget future value now at this point because the rest of the games are so bad. If you have one of these teams, I say go for it. But how confident do we really believe that that San Francisco will beat Seattle this week? Let me say this. If the Seahawks do not have Geno Smith, and I'm not sure if he is going to play, then a Niner win is a lock. Because Drew Lock, I have no confidence in that could lead the Seahawks to a victory against this San Francisco 49ers. I guess, can you just briefly talk to me about the Niners? They hit this 3-game skid, and then now they look so good against Jacksonville and now Tampa Bay. Are they back? Are they back to now being the Super Bowl favorites?
I hesitate to say anything, or I'm going to have a lot of Niner fans pissed off that I'm talking so positively.
That's what I'm trying to do, Michael. I'm trying to jinx the Niners. I'm trying to get you to say they're great so the Seahawks can win.
Well, I will say that they look really, really good coming off the bye a couple of weeks ago. 2 strong wins in a row. The defensive upgrades, the health of the team are certainly impactful. A little bit of a scare before the bye with Brock Purdy. I don't know if he's just every once in a while he's just going to have a couple games like that, or if maybe a few things were discovered that other teams couldn't do. There was a couple moments, even in this last game where it looked like the Niners might let the competition back in the game, but they look pretty good right now. I agree. So we talked about this a couple times before. This conference is really interesting. It seems like the Niners have the Rams number, always beat them. The Rams have the Seattle Seahawks number, kind of always give them a bit of a scare. And Seattle has been tough on the Niners. So, especially at home, I agree with you. Geno Smith out, I think that changes things. But if he's in, it could be a good game.
Yeah. So if you have San Francisco and one of these other teams, I would put San Francisco at the bottom of the list. But the question is, what if you do have San Francisco and Geno Smith plays? Let's hold off on that. We can comment that at the end after we break down these 4 games. All right, the Denver Broncos. Look at them, those pesky Denver Broncos, 2-point favorites over Chicago. Denver has won 4 straight games, and they haven't been against patty cake teams. They beat Minnesota, Buffalo, Kansas City, and Green Bay. So, I mean, there was such high expectations with Sean Payton coming in, turning around Russell Wilson. They got off to a terrible start, 1-5, but now they won 4 in a row. Is this Denver Broncos for real?
Well, I think they figured out that the chemistry of the team is based around their defense. And that's exactly what you have with Cleveland right now, especially with Deshaun Watson going down. If you can run the ball somewhat effectively and your defense can step up big, especially against teams that aren't necessarily that strong offensively, which arguably Cleveland is not, although they've been pretty good on the with the run. Then you can win ball games. And so I can understand with this game being in Denver, with Cleveland just having the injury to their starting quarterback, and with Denver looking really, really solid the last few weeks, I can understand why they're the favorite, but there's a reason it's a 2-point spread. Cleveland has shown, especially with that win against Baltimore a couple weeks ago, they have shown that they can beat anyone. And so I certainly wouldn't be comfortable betting against Cleveland in this game, even with Russell Wilson playing up. That, obviously Cortland Sutton looking really impressive. Isaiah Simmons and some of the defensive backs also looking quite strong. I can understand why Denver is the favorite, but wouldn't pick against Cleveland. How about you?
I'm in a similar boat there. I first thought that Cleveland, they're certainly the team that has the better record, but keep in mind that record was generated a lot of with the help of Deshaun Watson, who's not playing. In my fantasy football team, have the Cleveland Browns as my defense. I know how amazing that defense is, both in real life and in fantasy. So, yeah, I'll give the spoiler alert. This is not going to be a game I will suggest people picking. Let's move on to Minnesota at home, 3.5 point favorites over Chicago. It's interesting. We just talked about the Denver Broncos. They barely beat this Minnesota Vikings team, and it's the only loss that this Minnesota Viking team has had in the last 6 games. They were 5-0 before that, and similarly, they've had some impressive wins. They beat San Francisco, they beat Green Bay, they beat Atlanta, they beat New Orleans, and they beat the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Granted, they did not have Justin Fields. And one of the last things I said last week about the Chicago-Detroit game is it made me nervous because I think Justin Fields has such a great upside. If he is playing well, both with his arm and his legs, he can cause lots of trouble. That's exactly what he did against Detroit, who quite honestly is a better team than Minnesota. But I'll put it simply. I think this may come down to whether their best player, Justin Jefferson, is able to come back. Because in all those games, 5-1, they didn't have Justin Jefferson. And to get him back, whoa, I am really excited now about this game. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, Joshua Dobbs, how impressive has he been this season, coming into Arizona with, no prep time, keeping them in games when they didn't really belong, and then coming into Minnesota with Kirk Cousins going down. So the Minnesota defense has looked better this year. They've been more balanced on the offensive side of the ball. Had to do that with Jefferson out. If you watched the game last night, you heard them talking about maybe having to hurry Justin Jefferson back for this game to make sure they don't lose. On paper, they certainly look like the better team. against Chicago. But that Chicago game was in Detroit this last week. And it sure seemed like, Detroit would have no problem beating them, even with Fields, in my opinion. You guys heard me last week. But part of that was, Jared Goff. He looked really off. A couple of really bad throws. They were on him, not necessarily on pressure that the Bears had put. I think this is the Monday night game, so Justin Jefferson has even an extra day to get ready. In my opinion, let's face it, if Justin Jefferson can't go this week in an important game like this, maybe he shouldn't go at all this year, because he must have a hamstring issue that is quite significant. So I agree. Let's watch what happens with Jefferson. I kind of like this game a little bit more than some of the others if Jefferson plays, but the Justin Fields factor is quite significant in my opinion. Chicago's defense has looked better. I'm a little bit nervous about this one.
It's a curse that they play on Monday night, because we're not going to know officially whether Justin Jefferson is going to play before you might have to make a decision whether you want to go elsewhere with your survivor play. And hamstring is not something you like to have as a wide receiver coming back. And you worry, is he at 100%? Will he be using his first game back more as a decoy? Is that something that you worry about with a guy of stature? And they are, I know, because they're kind of in the same boat as Seattle. They lost another game where they could have really solidified a spot as a wild card.
Yeah. Something I do think you should use him as decoy. I mean, with Hawkinson and Addison and frankly, one thing I'd like to see Joshua Dobbs do a little bit better is use his. I mean, you saw take a page out of Russell Wilson's book on that last drive, just dropping the ball off to Pirine, every play. Use your defense, your running backs. I mean, one of the things we saw with Madison historically was his usage as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and he has not been used like that this year. Frankly, even when Cousins was there. So yeah, that's the right way to use him with some of the other talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball.
So still could be a benefit, what you're saying, having Jefferson in the lineup, even if he hasn't 100%, if he can take attention away from the defense. All right. Well, we're gonna revisit this when we compare it to the rest of them. Let's talk about New England. They are 3.5-point favorites at those pesky New York Giants, who ruined a lot of people's fantasy last week. What do you think about this game?
Well, I mean, if New England is all about winning to get some W's on the board, then you would think Bill Belichick's going to come out quite ready to handle DeVito and to make sure that the number one player on that team, Saquon Barkley, doesn't hurt them. That's what Bill Belichick does, I think, better than any other defensive mind, is basically eliminate the threat of your best player. That's the best thing to do with the Giants' offense. New England's defense has shown, signs of being strong, but their offense has been, relatively horrible. So they're coming out of the bye week this week, right? So that should help them. That should help them. And so I think if Bill Belichick's right, even though the game's in New York, which is close to home for New England for the most part, this game I feel really good about. Again, unless Bill Belichick's got some incentive to tank this season, which nobody in the NFL ever does, right? Right, Eric?
That's what I've been told. We'll talk about tanking in a minute. Well, I'll just say, they're not going to tank, but honestly, that's what they need. This offense needs Caleb Williams really badly. But Belichick has a history of really causing trouble to rookie QBs and getting, like you said, coming off a bye, getting 2 weeks to scheme against Tommy. I've told myself I was not going to say Danny. Tommy DeVito. It could be a lot of trouble. And I know everyone's going to be, look how great he was last week. I am telling you, this Washington secondary sucks. So I am not sold that, all of a sudden this New York Giant offense is really good. However, the Patriots are 2-8. How often does a 2-8 team on the road You want to put your survivor life on. I have concerns mostly because of this Patriot offense. They've scored the second least amount in the entire NFL, and they're tied with one other team with least explosive offenses, defined by there's only 18 times this year that they have had a play go 20 yards or more. So it's just scary. The other thing to keep in mind, the one thing we know is this New York Giant offensive line is horrible, just horrible. They allowed another 9 sacks. Do you think this New England defense can just, because this is what's going to happen. This is going to be one of the lowest scoring games. Do you think the New England defense can shut down the Giants? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, again, I think that's Bill Belichick's strength, like you say, putting pressure on rookie quarterbacks and taking away their best asset, Saquon Barkley, in this circumstance. That's something I think they'll be able to do. But it was really New York's defense that kind of teed them up a little bit in this last game. Obviously, that last second score, which we'll discount, but even a couple other turnovers that they produce. Thibodeau, looking pretty solid. I could see them giving some fits to the Giants or the Patriots and putting themselves in a position where they get a score or two in a cheap way.
That was the key, because I think Washington outgained them, but they turned the ball over. And all right, we'll take a peek. We'll revisit this game. The last game on our slate here is the Tennessee Titans. They are 3-7, and they're at home against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have the worst record in the NFL at 1-9. But this Tennessee team has lost 3 straight games, and they've lost 4 of 5. Their only win was in Will Levis's debut, where he threw 4 TDs. We've talked about this for a while, Michael. Is this yet another case where a guy comes in, there's no real film on him in the NFL, and he really surprises with a big game? Defensive coordinators have schemed against him, and he's now had 3 games which have not been good.
I think it is to some extent. I mean, the draft class was kind of down on Will Levis, which I was kind of surprised of given his how he did this, last year in college. So I expected him to be a little bit more capable. It's never easy to be put into the starting position when you weren't really planning on it. What's really surprised me is Tennessee hasn't used the run game in the last several weeks. I mean, isn't that something that this team has been built around? Has it been really that horrible of an approach for them to run the ball? Because that should be the way that they're going to, stay in games or beat teams like the Panthers. I will say the Panthers defense looked pretty good this last week. If you watched that game, which I flipped over to it a couple of times, but Bryce Young just still has not figured out. Basically, he tries to get the ball to Adam Thielen when he's struggling. And that works, for a first down here and there, but doesn't really produce anything else. And so their offense looks pretty bad, but Tennessee's defense is not stellar. So I can't get super comfortable with this game. This seems to me, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you think, here's our chance for another win going into Tennessee, who, at this point, I think they know they're not going to be a playoff team.
Hang on a minute. Yes, Michael agrees with me. Coach Grable, run the freaking ball. Okay, so he's got the message. This Carolina defense is 24th against the run, 31st against running backs. This is supposedly Derrick Henry's time, right? Later in the season, he certainly hasn't been overused. He should be fresh. Run the ball. And I think if they can do that, they don't have turnovers early that gets them somehow behind in this game, and they lean on Derrick Henry, I feel pretty good about this Tennessee chances to win. No one in the NFL has given up more points than this Carolina defense. And on the offense for Carolina, they've got the same problem. No explosiveness. Remember I talked about New England? The team that they're tied with is Carolina. So, man, I I'm kind of feeling good about this Tennessee Titan, but talk me off it. Why shouldn't I feel so good? It's scaring me that I'm talking myself into liking this Tennessee as a survivor pick. Give me the other side. Talk me off the ledge.
Well, I think it's their defense. Their defense is, for the last several years, has not been able to do anything against the pass. So, you talked about the Commanders' defensive backfield. The Tennessee has similar issues in their defensive backfield. They've been pretty good against the run. Actually hasn't been the case every year. That's where they've improved things, is against the run, and it hasn't proven good enough against teams, like Jacksonville Jaguars, who kind of been, struggling a little bit on the offensive side of the ball and got exactly what they needed this last week against Tennessee. So, can Carolina put up 17 or 20 points against Tennessee? I think it's not easy for them, but I think they could, especially if they get a turnover here or there. Will Tennessee put up more than that? If they run the ball, they should, because this Carolina defense is bad against the run. So if Mike Vrabel does the right thing this week with how he runs this team, they should win, but it will be a close game. Tennessee can't blow out anyone.
All right, so just for completeness, there's a couple other games we just want to mention, and we'll talk about whether we have any interest. I know this Indianapolis, who's coming off a bye, is 1.5-point favorites at home against Tampa Bay. Pittsburgh on the road is actually a 1-point favorite at Cincinnati. This is a game which I was targeting for Cincinnati before Joe Burrow got hurt. Is there any interest that you have or any confidence you have in which way? Because I'm in either of these two games.
No, stay away from both of those games. Too hard to know what Cincinnati can do without Burrow. Pittsburgh's just not explosive enough, although Jaylen Warren had some flashes of some impressiveness 2 weeks in a row. But the Steelers defense couldn't keep Cleveland from closing out the game, even with the replacement quarterback. I can't feel comfortable about either of these games. I wasn't feeling excited about the other ones we've talked about, but I feel more confident in those than these two.
Okay. Tampa Bay at times has looked good, and I know the Colts are coming off a bye, but I cannot look in the camera and say, bet your survivor life on the Indianapolis Colts. So, all right. So are we ready to reveal? How about this? We've never done this on the show. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, then say the name. Go ahead and say who your pick of, not counting anyone on the left part of the screen. If those are all gone, or for every reason you don't want to use them, who are we most confident that's going to win this week? Because there's not a huge difference in future value, and I don't think you should consider that at this point with these teams. Are you ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Tennessee.
Titans.
Oh, we sort of okay. I have a problem here, and it was hard for me to know because I'm right there behind Tennessee as Minnesota. And if you tell me that Justin Jefferson is playing and he looks like I'm confident enough that the reports are he looks like he's good, I might inch Minnesota ahead. Anyway, so Minnesota's my number 2. I'm out on the Patriots. I can't do it, folks. I'm not picking the Patriots. I cannot recommend that. It's between Tennessee and Minnesota. Is that the same for you, or?
Yeah, and I think I would have gone with Minnesota, but you made that phone call to Mike Vrabel, and I think he's going to respond to you, Eric.
If that's what people are relying on, good luck. All right, Michael, can you believe week 12, Thanksgiving week? I feel like I personally have a lot to be thankful for, as well as having you as not only a friend, but a co-host on this. I wish everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. If you can do me a favor and the show, go ahead and smash that like button. Share your comments about this week's games for NFL Survivor. And if you haven't yet, hit that bell icon and the subscribe button.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for everything.
All right, everybody. We'll put up 2 videos we think that you'll enjoy.